The movie opens up in a psychologist's clinic where a man called Sergey is seen having a conversation with a female psychologist. He narrates that if it wasn't for his wife, he would never have to go see a psychologist because she is the one who keeps telling him that he needs a psychologist. In addition to that, he tells the psychologist that he wants to be a father who can do anything to take care of his child. In response, the psychologist asks him if he realizes that he needs to have sexual intercourse with his wife to become a father. Sergey tells her that he has done it every day for the past 2 years. Also, he has tried different settings for intercourse, but nothing has worked. After that, the psychologist asks him whether he has properly phrased his wish or not, because a man's thoughts take physical form. This makes him confused, and he leaves the clinic abruptly by saying that his show is about to start. Soon, the scene changes as Sergey, the news anchor for a TV channel, is seen rushing towards the set of his show when he receives a call from his friend Zhora, who is a lawyer by profession. Zhora has lost the last 10 cases consecutively, which makes him wonder if he is cursed. Sergey tries to comfort him by advising him to take a break. Zhora reminds him that he has 2 daughters to feed, unlike Sergey, who has no kids. Meanwhile, Sergey's co-workers interrupt his conversation again and again and tell him to come for rehearsal. So he hangs up on Zhora and reaches the set. The show goes on air, and during the show, he notices the absence of the director Safronov. After Sergey is done with the show's recording, he asks his colleague about Safronov's whereabouts, who tells him that he is recovering from yesterday's party. Besides, the director only works with the stars and not ordinary anchor person. This aggravates Sergey, and he informs his colleague that he is not the kind of guy who needs shortcuts for success, unlike some people who can do anything to achieve fame further. Sergey asks his colleague about his future plans, to which the fellow replies that he has studied filmmaking and that one day he will make a big movie on his own. Sergey, being a conservative, makes fun of him by saying that miracles don't happen angrily. The man replies that the reason you are not a star is that you are a skeptical person with a negative attitude who doesn't believe in miracles. The scene changes to Diana, Sergey's wife, who is seen hosting an art exhibition, the theme of which is inspired by children. News reporters who have come to cover the event ask Diana if she has children, and she lies about it by saying that she has 2 kids. After giving a brief interview, she calls Sergey and scolds him for not arriving at the exhibition on time. On the other hand, when he gets off the phone, Sergey realizes that his car is seized by the police quickly. He approaches the traffic policeman and asks him to release his car since he desperately needs his car because it's important for him to attend his wife's art exhibition, but the policeman doesn't listen to him, so he uses public transport instead. Later that night, Sergey meets with Zhora in a bar and discusses his married life with him. He tells him that Diana has started to ignore him, probably because of her exhibitions, so Zhora advises him to plan for a baby. Meanwhile, Diana is seen meeting with her friend Sasha, who is also Zhora's wife. Diana tells her that her doctor says that she is unable to conceive due to some serious health problems and that she is not ready to break this bad news to Sergey. Yet on the other hand, Sergey tells Zhora that they have been trying for a baby for the last 2 years. That's when Zhora tells him that he and Sasha are expecting a baby. Soon Zhora is sure that he will have a baby boy because he has done it the old-fashioned way by wearing felt boots during intercourse. Apparently, it is a tradition in Zhora's family to wear felt boots during intercourse if you wish for a baby boy. In the meantime, Sasha is telling Diana the same news about her pregnancy and advises her to make Sergey wear felt boots next time, as she wishes to conceive. The scene changes back to the bar, where Zhora asks Sergey about his Valentine's Day plans. Sergey tells him that there is a place where he met Diana for the first time 5 years ago, and thus, every Valentine's Day, they meet there reliving the memory of their first meetup a few days later on Valentine's Day. Sergey takes Diana to that place as planned. He expresses his wish that when they have children, then all of them will come here together. Sergey's wish makes her sad, but she does not say anything to him about what the doctor had said to her the next day. Sergey goes to buy felt boots and wears them during intercourse as Zhora's advice. After being intimate with Diana, he gets up from the bed and starts smoking while having flashbacks of his conversation with his colleague who called him conservative for not believing in miracles. Then he remembers what the psychologist had said about thoughts taking physical form while talking to himself. He expresses his wish to have a baby with his eyes closed. He starts repeating his wish again and again until he opens his eyes and sees a shooting star, which is considered a good sign. 10 days later, suddenly Sergey feels sick and vomits while shooting for the show. His colleagues on the set look at him in surprise, but Sergey tells tells them that he didn't even drink yesterday after the shoot. He goes to a market to buy groceries while he is shopping. Zhora calls him to confirm their plans for a meetup while talking. Sergey feels sick again and tells Zhora that his lower abdomen is hurting. In response, Zhora makes fun of him by asking whether he is pregnant after hanging up on him. Sergey looks up and catches sight of a shelf full of pickle jars and purchases it later at night. He sneaks into the kitchen to eat pickles while Diana is asleep. His sickness and cravings for pickles make him suspicious, and he takes a urine pregnancy test and finds it unbelievably positive. He is not sure. So he takes the test again and again, but the results remain the same every single time. In absolute distress, he starts to cry while sitting in the bathroom. Days pass by, and he doesn't tell Diana anything about the pregnancy test. One day, Diana scolds him at breakfast for eating too many pickles, to which he replies that he has some news. Diana thinks that the news might be related to Sergey's news show, so she gets excited, but Sergey tells her that he is pregnant. She doesn't believe him at first, but then he shows her the pregnancy tests he has taken. She suspects him of cheating, but he tells her that the baby is theirs. Only their conversation is paused when the doorbell rings. Turns out to be Sergey's mom and dad have come to visit along with Zhora and his family during lunch. Sergey breaks the news of his pregnancy and faces mixed reactions of anger and disappointment. Instantly, Diana gets up and leaves the room. His father looks disappointed, and Zhora gets angry at him for being knocked up like this. Sergey says that he did not expect such a reaction from his family and leaves. Eventually, Diana makes peace with Sergey over him being pregnant. Sergey tells her to concentrate on her career since he is going to take maternity leave, and Diana will be the provider of the family. Additionally, Diana signs him up for the expecting mothers class. A few days later, Diana takes him to a gynecologist for a routine checkup. When the doctor realizes that Sergey is the one who is pregnant, he refuses to examine him, and so do many other gynecologists. Apparently, the doctors don't even know where to begin the treatment of a pregnant man. Of all the gynecologists they visit, there is only one Dr. Tyanov who agrees to be Sergey's maternity care provider, only because he hasn't landed any clients since he opened his clinic, and his clinic's rent is due soon. In conclusion, it's a win-win situation for both Sergey and the desperate doctor. Several days later, during the live streaming of Sergey's show, his co-star breaks the news of his pregnancy, which takes the media by storm and starts trending all over the country. Suddenly, his pregnancy is being monitored all over the world, and he becomes a constant target of people's mockery. People in the scientific community believe that the doctor who discovered this phenomenon is guaranteed a Nobel Prize, whereas Sergey is in distress, seeing all that attention drawn towards him later. He finds out that the news of his pregnancy is leaked by his friend Zhora. When Sergey confronts him, Zhora admits to breaking the news. In addition to that, Zhora claims that he is jealous of the famed Sergey's pregnancy. Out of rage, Sergey takes out all his anger on him that has been building up inside him for the past few days. Zhora, on the other hand, sees a silver lining in this situation. So after comforting him, Zhora presents an idea suggesting that Sergey should use his pregnancy to make money, as there is no one more famous than him right now. At first, Sergey reacts bitterly and is offended by this plan, but soon he agrees to Zhora's plan and decides to do as he says. In the next few days, Sergey's videos are all over the media, and he becomes a star in the country. The TV reporters follow him everywhere to videograph him while he shares his pregnancy tips and experiences with the public. Meanwhile, Sergey's friends and family members are interviewed when Sergey's mom is asked about her opinion. She tells the reporters that she will be the one taking care of the baby. Whereas Sergey's brother feels inspired by Sergey's pregnancy, Sergey's boss affirms in his interview that Sergey will have a beautiful child inheriting his looks from Diana. When Diana is interviewed, she expresses that the city's climate is horrible, and it takes a lot of effort and energy to conceive a baby in the city, thus everyone has a different approach to the situation. One day, Sergey gets out of the lift to find a crowd of people wanting to talk to him. All of this attention starts to make him happier than ever. When he reaches the parking lot, he sees Zhora, who is waiting for him. Zhora asks him to go to a nice place to celebrate Sergey's fame. At first, Sergey resists by saying that he needs to go home to Diana, but agrees on Zhora's strong request. When they reach the hotel, Zhora helps Sergey to sit in the chair and goes to the restroom. When a man named Edgar comes to talk to Sergey, Edgar tells Sergey that he and his boyfriend have been trying for a baby for 8 years, but they have had no success, so maybe Sergey can give them a tip on how to conceive. Sergey asks Edgar to call his boyfriend to come over and then tells them the trick of wearing felt boots during sexual intercourse. Along with that, Sergey suggests that the felt boots must be yellow with green polka dots. Just then, Zhora comes back from the restroom and sees Sergey with the gay couple, so he decides to leave this place due to a lack of privacy. After that, Zhora takes Sergey to a strip club while Zhora enjoys himself seeing half-naked women in the club. Sergey doesn't look much interested when suddenly he feels the baby baby's movement for the first time when he tells Zhora about the development of his pregnancy. Zhora gets equally excited for him when Sergey gets back to meet Diana in her studio. He tells her about the baby's first movement and doesn't realize that Diana is taking down all her pictures and giving away all the magazines. Out of anger, Diana lets her feelings out by telling him that she had to close the exhibition and that she feels left out. She thinks that she is not needed anymore, but Sergey contradicts her by saying that he needs her by his side, so she apologizes for her behavior after that. Sergey poses for her and she does a maternity photo shoot for him, which makes him very happy when Diana takes Sergey to the doctor's clinic for his follow-up checkup. The doctor asks them to come more often as it is recommended at this stage of pregnancy. Moreover, he tells them to sign up for photofluorography so that he can make more money off of them and pay for his bill. After that, the doctor does an ultrasound and informs Sergey and Diana that they are going to have a baby boy. As soon as they leave the clinic, they are surrounded by reporters and journalists eagerly waiting for the gender reveal. So Sergey gives them the news that it's a baby boy, and then a series of questions are asked by the reporters about the baby's delivery. While answering their questions, Sergey leaves with them and forgets Diana behind. With each passing day, Sergey's fame continues to increase. In one day, he is invited to Kremlin to meet with the president. When the president arrives, Sergey gets confused and forgets about what to say to him. So instead, the president asks him for a photo for his blog. The scene changes and Sergey is taken to meet with the women in labor. He sits and comforts them. Also, he shows his support by saying that they all are together in this. Later that day, when he is narrating stories related to his pregnancy to a bunch of female reporters, Zhora comes running to him saying that Diana is on call and wants to talk to him, but Sergey asks him to tell her that he will call her back later. On the other hand, Diana hangs up the phone after hearing his response and is disappointed by his rude behavior. One day, while sitting in the bar of a restaurant having a drink before lunch, Sergey is approached by Edgar and his boyfriend, whom he had advised about wearing felt boots. To conceive, Edgar tells him that they did, just like he suggested, but they did not succeed. So what could possibly be wrong in response to that? Sergey tells him that he had forgotten to mention wearing a space helmet during sex, and that surely will get them pregnant. After that, he leaves immediately towards the table where all of his family and friends are waiting for him at lunch. Just when they are about to start eating, a reporter approaches their table and starts recording them. Sergey, being used to all of the attention, doesn't mind at all. He introduces his dad to the camera and asks his dad to look in the camera and say something. At first, Sergey's dad doesn't look so happy about it, but at his wife's request, he stands up and gives him a blessing for his childbirth. After that, he introduces his brother Peter Zhora and his wife Diana while looking into the camera. When he asks Diana to tell the viewers more about herself, she loses her temper and walks out quickly. Zhora gets up and asks the reporter to hand him over the tape, but Sergey asks him to leave it. Zhora keeps on insisting that the tape must be taken from the reporter until Sergey lashes out at him and tells him to mind his own business instantly. Zhora and his wife leave and Sergey's mom starts crying due to lots of negative energy around. In the end, Sergey is left alone in the restaurant in the coming days. Sergey's fame is over the top and his name resounds all over the world. His posters are worshipped and there are rallies conducted in his name, being his advisor and assistant. Zhora handles all the money that comes with Sergey's fame, and Sergey has no idea about his income one day. All of this stardom is threatened when the directors of another channel file a lawsuit against Sergey's show, claiming it all to be fake. On the day of the court's hearing, Zhora presents himself as Sergey's lawyer while Sergey is called to the stand. The prosecutor demands proof of his pregnancy and asks him why he did not allow journalists to witness the ultrasound scan. So he tells the prosecutor that the ultrasound scan is a private matter. Besides, Sergey wants the world to know that if they strongly believe in something, then it will definitely come true as it did for him. Meanwhile, the prosecutor presents a file containing all the information about Sergey's accounts and accuses him of fraud and deception in exchange for millions of dollars. Since Zhora has been handling all such matters, Sergey is unaware of all the transaction details. Fails. He requests Zhora to tell them the truth as the prosecutor continues to attacking him by calling him a fraudster of show business. Zhora gets confused and his argument gets weak because he knows that he is the guilty one after the hearing. Sergey leaves the court to find a storm of news reporters waiting outside for him. Zhora takes advantage of the situation and portrays Sergey as a victim of false accusations in the next court. Hearing, Zhora confidently calls Sergey to the stand and asks him to remove remove his shirt and show his belly to the court, and he is sure that when the judge sees him naked, he will believe his pregnancy. To his disappointment, the prosecutor claims that every other alcoholic person has a swollen stomach like this, so it will not be considered proof in court. Sergey loses his temper since he has not been drinking for the past 7 months, but the prosecutor continues to bash him in court. In her opinion, Sergey's show is causing an obstacle in nature's procreation by urging men to give birth. After that, she calls Sergey's boss, Safronov, and asks him about the source, who provided him with the news about Sergey's conception. Hence, Safronov tells the court that it was Zhora who sent the tip to him. So after asking his editor, his team decides to leak the news on a live broadcast, which leads to Sergey's immense fame. The prosecutor objects to his statement and asks him how he could break a piece of invalid news to a whole country without any proof after she has made her point. She rests her case. Next, the defense lawyer Zhora calls Sergey's doctor to the stand and asks him, when did he start treating Sergey? The doctor explains that he recently started his practice being a doctor, and Sergey is one of his first patients. Further, he tells Zhora that Sergey was refused by many doctors before he came to him, and that he took it as a challenge to treat Sergey. Furthermore, he tells the court that Sergey's pregnancy was confirmed by an ultrasound scan. After that, Zhora presents a file of Sergey's ultrasound skin images as evidence, but is instantly interrupted by the prosecutor when she presents a file in the court containing opinions of leading experts in gynecology on this matter. In addition to that, she mockingly says that Sergey is the only client of Dr. Tynov and that he is lying about it. In the next few days, Sergey receives many job offers from different TV channels, but he refuses by saying that he feels comfortable at his previous workplace. One day, he is invited to a live radio program on Russian radio, and the host introduces him by calling him a living legend. During the interview, Diana joins the radio program as a live caller. The host asks Sergey about how he processes the fact that he is the one who got pregnant and not his wife, to which Sergey boldly replies that he wanted a baby more than Diana. After listening to his statement, tears roll down her cheeks, and she hangs up without saying anything. When Sergey reaches home, he discovers that Diana is gone. He sits there reevaluating his life situation and tries to decide what is more important for him. Is it the child or Diana? After some thinking, he reaches a conclusion and decides something in the next court hearing. When Sergey doesn't show up at court, the prosecutor tries to convince the judge that his absence should be considered proof of his fraud, but Zhora stands up for him in his absence and raises a strong argument. As his defense lawyer, he informs the court that Sergey is the newest breakthrough in the history of mankind. Further, he adds that they cannot put him behind bars just because he is not an ordinary man, since the audience of the court is already in love with Sergey. They give a huge standing ovation. In his honor, just then, the clerk brings the tape sent by Sergey. When the tape is played, everyone is shocked to see Sergey admit that his show is a fraud and he was never pregnant. Also, in his confession video, he apologized to everyone he heard. Thus, the judge passes a ruling against him and sentences him to a fine of 1 million rubles for fraud and deception. The news spreads like fire, and the image he had in the public's eyes is shattered. After getting rid of the fandom, he goes to meet Diana and tells her that he has quit the show. Diana welcomes him with open arms, so Sergey kisses her, when suddenly he feels labor contractions. Instantly, he is rushed to the hospital where Dr. Tynov works as an obstetrician. Knowing Sergey's case since the beginning, he takes the case, and Sergey delivers the baby via C-section. Sergey and Diana named the boy Josie. 3 years later, Diana is seen hosting an exhibition and pursuing her career. Moreover, Diana expresses her wish for more children. So one day after having sex with Sergey, she wishes to have twins and sees 2 shooting stars in the sky. A couple of months later, both Diana and Sergey get pregnant together at the same time. Meanwhile, the prosecutor in Sergey's lawsuit is seen expressing her opinion in an interview by saying that it would be very interesting to see women doing unusual things like being the bread earner of the family, but then she believes that something should never change as it makes more sense when things are done the old-fashioned way.